The Voyages of Zheng. A book came out in 2004 called 1421, the year China discovered the world. I'm using quotes from this book, a YouTube video from Penn Museum, our textbook, and a little fact-checking from Wikipedia. The author tells how Zheng not only sailed all over the Indian Ocean and along the coast of Africa nearly 80 years before da Gama, he speculates that Zheng discovered America 72 years before Columbus and circumnavigated the world long before Magellan. Although these latter 2 points lack significant historical evidence, there is plenty of amazing left in the book that is fact. The Ming Emperor Yongle wanted control of the Indian Ocean. This is the same emperor that built a new imperial capital in Beijing, including the Forbidden City, and extended the Great Wall. Zheng supervised the construction of a great fleet of perhaps 3,500 ships, and then commanded the fleet. Some of these ships were the largest marine craft the world had ever known. Zheng flagship measured about 400 feet in length. For comparison, Christopher Columbus's Santa Maria measured less than a fourth of that, just 85 feet. On the first voyage, from 1405 to 1407, 62 nine-masted treasure ships led the way, carrying personnel, horses, grain, and 28,000 armed troops. It blows the mind because more than half a century later, the best Europe could do were comparatively tiny vessels. They'd barely learned how to make ships with decks. By the 1600s, the galleys used for trade only had 2 decks. In comparison, Zheng ships nearly 200 years earlier had as many as 4 decks and 6 masts. That's gigantic for a wooden ship, far larger than any other wooden ships in history. Modern historians were skeptical of accounts describing the size of these ships until, in 1962, workers on the Yangtze River front found a buried wooden timber 36 feet long, originally a steering post, beside a massive rudder. It was the right size to have been able to steer a ship up to 600 feet in length, and the right age, dated at 600 years old, to be from one of Zheng Hu's ships. We have eyewitness accounts from Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta, both of whom described multi-masted ships carrying 500 to 1,000 passengers. 3 first-hand accounts survive, written by men who sailed with Zheng, 2 from officers and 1 from a translator. Leaving on his final voyage, Zheng stopped at 2 places in China to have granite inscriptions placed so that his deeds would be understood and not forgotten. Woodblock prints of a map, actually more of a sailing chart of the voyage, also exist, not in China, but in places that he went. The map is put together like a scroll in a strip of 40 sections. Sailing instructions are given based on a 24-point compass, time and distance, local currents, winds, and depth soundings, and information used for navigating by the stars. The map shows bays, estuaries, capes and islands, ports and mountains along the coast, as well as important landmarks such as pagodas and temples. Of the 300 named places outside China, more than 80% have been identified. Zheng's initial trip took him from the South China Sea through the Indian Ocean to Calicut and back. The emperor's purpose for this expedition seems to have been to obtain recognition and gifts from other rulers. The voyagers did not intend to conquer or colonize, but they were prepared to use military force against those who refused to respect them. 5 more voyages followed before Emperor Yonglei's death in 1424. They included excursions to an Arab port at the mouth of the Persian Gulf, as well as the coast of eastern Africa, from which he returned with giraffes, zebras, and other items unfamiliar to the Chinese. This image is believed to be the giraffe Zheng who brought back. The official Ming history mentions Franca, the Chinese name for France, Portugal, and Holland. Did Zheng's fleet actually go there, as the author of 1421 claims? The voyages of Zheng are a favorite topic of world historians today. They show that Chinese ships could have ruled the Indian Ocean and beyond. Why didn't they? What if they had? How different would the world be? On his 7th and final voyage from 1431 to 1433, Zheng, who apparently died at sea and was likely buried off the coast of India. While the 7th voyage was out to sea, the emperor died. New military threats came from the Mongols in the north. In the Chinese dynastic cycle, once a dynasty is seen as having lost the mandate of heaven, they lose the people's support. Death of an emperor, foreign invasions, and financial troubles could be taken as signs. Perhaps it was for this reason that when the fleet returned, the new emperor suddenly ordered that these expensive expeditions be halted. The ships were left to rot in the harbors. Zheng's voyages were even neglected in official Chinese histories. And craftsmen forgot how to build such large ships, letting that knowledge slip away as well. Fascinating, yes, but what does this have any connection to the Age of Discovery? And if so, what? Here's one possibility. Did you know that Christopher Columbus came to Portugal first before he appealed to Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain? He studied maps and records kept in the India House outside of Lisbon. He proposed his theory to the King of Portugal first, but was rejected. The Jewish scholars tried to tell him that he was miscalculating the circumference of the earth by 30%. As you know, he took his idea to Spain and got the commission. Incidentally, those Jewish and even some Muslim scholars were very helpful to the Portuguese. Many had come to Portugal when they were driven out of Spain. Too bad they had to be driven out of Portugal as well after the king married a Spanish princess. So on his first voyage, Columbus set a course directly across the Atlantic and found the West Indies. He made 4 voyages in all, and remarkably sailed virtually identical courses. First of all, how did he know this route? The instruments they had could not have given him all the information that he needed to be so confident. No one from Europe had done this before. Did Zheng visit Lisbon and leave maps of winds and currents? Zheng's first voyage was in 1405. Prince Henry the Navigator would have been just becoming a teenager. Did Zheng inspire him? We may never know. The India House were priceless maps and 80 years of records of the immense work that went into preparing Portugal for their voyages of discovery was destroyed in an earthquake in 1755. I really like the story of Zheng because I love stories of smart people. I hope you've enjoyed